What is going on, guys? Gavin here, and today we played some branded Despia at locals. Technically went undefeated, going 2-0-1. See the comment section for the description on the matchups. But it was an interesting day to be playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Because Photon Hypernova is here, but the ban list isn't. So yeah, got to play against the full power Kashtira Tearlament deck, which was absolutely absurd. Definitely happy I don't have to play against that deck in the future, but I do have a lot of hopes for this deck in the upcoming format. I think it's definitely going to be one of the top contenders, if not the top contender. I think this deck is absolutely sick. So let's go ahead and go over my version of the deck that I played today. To start off, we played triple copies of Aluber, one copy of Adlib, and one copy of Dramaturge, and then triple copies of the Despian Tragedy. I've always been a fan of this ratio. Think that 3 Tragedy is still pretty good now. I dropped the Allure of Darkness from the deck, so maybe this card isn't quite worth playing at 3, but it's really nice to open this card with the Cartesia card because you can fuse with it, get a search off, and like go super plus with that play, get this card into the graveyard. It's really, really nice for your follow-up turns as well. And then I still play the Dramaturge just because I've always been a fan of this card. Like, its negation effect is nice, and the fact that it allows you to push for tons of damage is also really cool. So that is my Despia lineup that I played. For the spell cards, we played triple copies of the Branded Fusion. Absolutely insane card. Now that the power level of the format has gone down a little bit, I think this card is really, really going to shine and just probably going to get limited on the next ban list. That's just my hot take prediction there. Then we played triple copies of, or maybe it's not even that hot of a take, but anyways, we played triple copies of the Branded Opening. Card's insane too. Gets you access to whatever Despia monster you need. And then for the one-offs, we played one Theater, one Branded in Red, one Banishment, and one Retribution. Was definitely sleeping on Retribution in the past. This card's absolutely absurd. Just being able to give you insane amounts of follow-ups and help you play through negates, because if they hard negate your Branded Fusion and you have this card in your grave, or if you can get this card into your graveyard with a Serenir or a Albion, you can actually just like add back the Branded Fusion to your hand and use it again, which I love to do. But otherwise, like, this card just helps you in your follow-up so much. So definitely think this card is super, super insane. So Branded in Red, used to play it at 2. Still really like this card. However, I don't think it's quite as good and doesn't need to be played in multiples in this format because I'm not playing dropless anymore. I'm not playing this deck as a blind second deck anymore. This card was really good when you could just send cards to the graveyard with like Droplet, Fallen of Albaz, Super Poly, and then use it. So not doing that anymore, and I think it's just fine to play at 1. But we'll see in the future if I want to play more of it. For the continuous cards, we're playing one Lost, one Regained, and one Branded Beast. These cards are all very, very good in grindier games, and the more of them that you can set up onto the field, the better off you're going to be. Branded Lost is insane. Probably the weakest of these 3 cards, to be honest, now, especially since I don't expect this format to be super combo heavy and putting up tons of negates. But the fact that this card gets you an add when you fusion summon, makes your fusion summons unrespondable, is just really, really solid. And then Regained gets you insane value with the Bestials and Banishing, and then Beast to just help you break your opponent's board and control the game over the course of a couple turns. For the Bestial Engine, we cut down on it a little bit because Kashtira, these cards really don't capitalize on the Kashtira deck very well at all because they don't really play light or dark monsters in the main deck. So you might actually want to play 3 Lubellion because I do think the Bestial monsters are still super insane. And they synergize with our own deck, but we have to get the ball rolling somehow to get our graveyard, get a light or dark monster into the graveyard. So these cards are still insane, but they just take a little bit more effort to get rolling, and you don't want to brick on them. So that's why I'm only playing one of each in the main deck and playing the rest of the good ones like in the side deck. But Lubellion's still really, really insane, just because getting access to your continuous branded cards is very good. For the Albaz monsters, we're playing triple copies of Albaz himself. I think it's really good to play 3 of this card because deck disruption is still very prevalent. You always want to have at least 1 copy of this card in your deck, if not 2, because we do play Fusion Deployment and Branded Fusion. And both of those cards need this card in the deck to really be at full power, really. Other than that, I mean, it's just a pretty solid card to go second with. If you open it with Super Poly, it's pretty much game. So yeah, I think Albaz is a great card, and I like playing it at 3, always have. One Albion, and then one Incredible Ecclesia, because it helps you e-tele out your Albaz, and then one Cartesia. This card is absolutely nutty too. Really think this card is absolutely bonkers, because it works with Fusion Deployment now, since the new Fusion monster came out, and you can just special summon this card out. So we essentially play 4 copies of this card, and the fact that you can fuse with it every single turn is really good too, and it also has the same floating effect as Incredible Ecclesia, where if it's in the graveyard and a fusion monster was sent to the graveyard this turn, you can add it back to your hand. So just these cards give you very good grind game as well, and having access to that new fusion monster is really cool. And then the Tri-Brigade Mirror Carrier for toolboxing, either using it as a negate or just banishing it, getting it plus. Also, it's fusion material. It's the only fusion material we play in the main deck for the new Albaz fusion. But yeah, it's a mandatory card to play in the deck. I don't like Spriggan's Kit, which is another card that you can use as a fusion material for the new Rindbrum, I think is what it's called. But I just kind of hate Spriggan's Kit, because you have to, it doesn't really make you go plus. You have to put a card from your hand back into your deck, especially when you go second. Just not really efficient in my opinion. Then we play triple copies of Fusion Deployment. This card now has dual purposes, being able to bring out the Fallen of Albaz or the Cartesia, which is just super insane. And the fact that it's also searchable off of the Alba Lenidus is cool, because if you already have a branded fusion or access to branded fusion, you can search this card instead of searching like a second copy of branded fusion that isn't going to do anything on your follow-up turn. So yeah, I think Fusion Deployment is absolutely nutty in the deck. Then we play one Gold Sark, one Foolish. Gold Sark, it's just really good to either banish Tragedy or the Mirror Carrier, and then Foolish Burial to send whatever you need to the graveyard. A lot of the times it is the Tragedy to get access to a Luber, but if you already have access to a Luber, you can just send depending on what you need. For the going second cards, we are playing 2 copies of the Triple Tactics Talent, triple copies of Nibiru. I think this card is going to be very good once again, and triple copies of the Super Poly. This card's absolutely insane with the deck. It just keeps getting better and better as we get more and more Albaz fusions. We pretty much can just fuse with anything now if we have this card paired with Fallen of Albaz. And then triple copies of Book of Eclipse to help us deal with the Kashtira board. And we can pretty much, like, if this card resolves, we're probably going to be able to get rid of all their monsters anyway, so it's not like they're going to really be drawing anything. So this card's absolutely insane. And then it's also good against Sword Soul, and it's not bad in the mirror either. Just being able to flip your opponent's Mirror Jade or whatever face down. I mean, this deck really doesn't put up negates either, so we can just capitalize on that. Okay, for the extra deck, we are playing 2 copies of each of our core Albaz fusions, and 2 Albion, 2 Lubellion, and 2 Mirror Jade. Definitely don't want all of these cards getting banished out of our extra deck before we have the chance to use them when we play against Kashtira, so I think it's still worth playing multiples of all these. And then for the one-offs, we're playing the 1 Rindbum, 1 Titanic Clad, and 1 Alba Lenidus, and then the 1 new Dusk Dragon. So the reason why I'm playing these cards is Rindbrum is an exceptional Super Poly target against Tri-Brigade, Flunderees. We don't even have to worry about the Wind Barrier statue going forward in the future, so this card is absolutely insane, with Super Poly, but also just being an exceptional card to dump into the graveyard because it allows us to essentially summon a Fallen of Albaz on our opponent's turn on a quick effect, which is crazy, so that we can continue making crazy, essentially Super Poly plays to break our opponent's board and serve as additional disruptions. Titanic Clad is in here because it helps us get over the new Kashtira Xyz monster that just is like Dryden on steroids and also banishes all your stuff. This card is unaffected by it, so you can just make this card, beat over it, and continue trying to play in your main phase too. Alba Lenidus, just because I like having this card. I'd rather have this card in my extra deck than not have it in there because it's so useful when it comes up, and being able to break dragon boards, and also just being able to search as a branded fusion. I like to send this card off my Mirror Jade on my opponent's turn, so that I can search a branded fusion for my follow-up, or now we can even search Fusion Deployment, which is cool. And then this card, The new Dusk Dragon, I don't even want to try pronouncing the first part of its name, is insane too, because it allows us to send essentially any fusion monster from our extra deck to the graveyard, and we have tons of good cards to send to the graveyard from our extra deck. So absolutely insane. I didn't even use the effect to summon a Despia monster from my extra deck or main deck today either. It just didn't come up, but this card's absolutely insane, and you might even consider playing 2 of it just because you don't want it getting banished by your Kashtira opponents, but I couldn't find the space for it, and I just wanted to play all these other cards in the extra deck as well. For the rest of the extra deck, we're playing Double Tax Dragon and the 1 Quertus. You can bring out the Quertus off of the Dusk Dragon, which is cool, but also this card's just pretty solid for helping you break boards, and then Double Tax Dragon's really good, especially like when you go second, you do some damage to your opponent, but you didn't kill them. You can make this card, and now they're under a lot of pressure to essentially do something before they die. So I think Double Tax Dragon's just always going to be the move. And then the 1 Guardian Chimera and the 1 Dragos Despia as our generics. You know, we don't really rely on these cards quite as much anymore, but they're still incredibly useful toolbox cards to have for disrupting our opponent, and Dragos Despia is just a very easy card for this deck to make. So that is it for the extra deck. Let's go ahead and breeze through the side deck real quick. Okay, for the side deck, we are playing the rest of the Bestial package in 2 copies of Magnamut, 1 copy of Baldrake, and 1 copy of Serenir. So if we really want to hose a dark or light deck, these cards are definitely going in. These cards are really good against the Dark World deck. That's one weakness of this deck. If we do end up going second against Dark World, it can be kind of rough because the only real hand trap that we have is the 4 Bestials that we main deck and the Nibiru, and we are playing a 50 card deck, so it's a little bit difficult to win against that deck. You have to draw a pretty good hand when you go second versus them game 1, but the Bestials are really solid against that deck, so you can just side all those in. Triple copies of Eradicator card is absolutely unfair when it resolves, and it's also very good to have with the new Triple Tactics Thrust, so that's another reason why you might want to experiment with that card. Like I said, I don't have that card yet, but it might be going into the deck soon. Then triple copies of TC Boo. Card's just rage inducing if you're playing the wrong deck against TC Boo. And then Called by the Grave for hand trap heavy decks, and then for back row blowout, Harpy's Feather Duster and triple evenly matched, just typical go second garbage. So that is it for the deck profile, guys. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you hit the like and potentially even the subscribe button. But with that, I am going to leave you guys with a peace out, have a nice day, and goodbye.